So, for those, well, Donna, you didn't see the previous chapter, but every chapter we learn, it's basically, I don't know if you heard about the book of Tanya, was written by this rabbi, the Alter Rebbe, Reb Schneur Zalman, around a little bit over 200 years ago. And we started with chapter 1, and now we're up to chapter 16. I did put all my videos on YouTube if you want to catch up. But now we're up to chapter 16. We're going to review a little. Before we start chapter 16, I actually think Cheryl asked a really good question, which is going to review what we learned and bring us up to date. So Cheryl, I don't want to ask the question. Can you ask your question again? And I want to make sure I understand it well.
Okay, well, my question essentially is that the description of who gets to be a Benoni, according to the book, is a man who never stops praying, never thinks about sin, doesn't think about physical pursuits, physical pleasures. So, okay, that's commendable, but is it realistic? Can a man who wants to have a happy marriage, spend time with his kids, enjoy a nice meal, or even see some friends, can he still reach the level of Benoni if he's not actually studying Torah every minute?
Okay, very good question. So basically, in the Tanya, we redefine what a tzaddik mean, which is a saintly person, a perfect person, in other words. We redefine what a rasha, an evil person or a wicked person means. And then we learned about a new type of person, which is called a Benoni. Tzaddik, we understand that is not something everyone could reach. It's a gift that people are given, that certain people are given, where they are able to eliminate their evil within them and completely live in this world, but seeing a God revealed in this world, something that most regular people can do. Wicked person, a rasha, we understood that is someone who has his evil inclination. Now, what is evil? Remember, evil is not, every term we learn in the Tanya is not the way the world translates. So this is where it's going to start answering your question. What does evil mean according to Tanya? Evil is succumbing to your natural instincts, which are egocentric, selfish, animalistic, things that are not godly. So evil is not necessarily something bad. We all have that. We all have evil within us, which makes us that we all are all in the category of a rasha, because, you know, I'm talking for myself. I haven't yet conquered all my evil, egocentric, and animalistic instinct. It's part of our nature, and God said it's okay. This is how He created us. It's part of our nature. But the Tanya tells us, the Alter Rebbe tells us, for you regular people who cannot get rid of your evil within, a level you are able to reach is a Benoni. What is a Benoni? And this is what we did in the previous chapter 12, 13, 14, and 15. So 4 chapters, I think, that explain what a Benoni is someone who still lives in this world. He does not see the God, the revealed God that a tzaddik, a righteous person, sees. He sees the physical world. He sees and feels even the attraction to physical, to egocentrism, to selfishness. But instead of giving in to his ego and his evil nature, he is able to all the time constantly conquer that nature and bring out the God, the light within everything physical. So when Cheryl asked, and what did we learn? We learned that the Benoni is constantly learning Torah, and he's praying, and he's doing Torah and mitzvah constantly, because he always wants to connect to God and never wants to break that connection. Now we have to understand something. This Benoni is a regular person, right? Like you and me, everyone's able to reach it. Of course, it's very hard. It's a hard work, but we're all able to reach it. Okay. Does that mean?
When you say, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
When you say we're all able to reach it, You mean we all have the potential?
We all have the potential.
But is it, in fact, in reality,
So let me explain you.
Really attainable?
So if the Tanya says it's attainable, it's attainable. Now we have to understand, again, what is evil? Does that mean that he can't play with his kids? Why is that evil to play with his kids? Does that mean he can't eat? He needs to feed himself and survive. But the way he experiences, or he or she, I'm sorry I say he, but it's he or she can both reach it, that's where the difference is. Is he reacting by instincts and impulses? Is he eating just because he wants to fulfill that desire of food and satisfaction? Satisfaction. I knew I said something wrong. Satisfaction he gets when he eats the food. Does he want to play with his kids just so he can fill his ego or her ego, a feeling of being a good parent? Or this person, this Benoni, is doing it because they understand that these kids are holy, and by spending time they are giving their kids, whatever their intention. The intention of a Benoni is different than the intention of someone who is not a Benoni.
Okay.
So it's really interesting, actually. I wrote it somewhere. It was so beautiful. Where did I write it? I forgot where I wrote it. It's either you act out of impulse, which is most regular human beings, you don't think, or you act with a vision. That means you do the same action, but that action has a vision. And what is a vision? Is to connect to God, to bring more light. So that is the difference of a Benoni. Yes, he learns Torah whenever he has free time, but it's a mitzvah to take care of your kids and to educate your kids. It's a mitzvah to be a good husband or a good wife. It's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos and to celebrate. And you need to eat in order to have strength, in order to do whatever you need to do. So the Benoni's actions are done with a vision. The regular person, the Rasha, doesn't really think too much. It's impulsive. Yes, go Marie.
Well, that's my French side. About food, for example. Is the Benoni supposed to appreciate the food he eats, or does he eat just because his body needs food to sustain? I mean, he could eat a dried peel and it would be okay for him.
It's funny you say that.
Or is he able to look at baguette de pain and go woo?
So first of all, there's different levels of Benoni. You remember it, but there's different levels. I'm sure there's some that are more passionate about food and some. But I just want to tell you a story. I remember that I was told.
Because as wives are supposed to make good food. I mean, taste good. What's the use of making it taste good if the guy who eats it doesn't?
So there could be some people who are not so into food, who will just eat to feed themselves, and there could be the Benoni who has an attraction to food, but will use that attraction to elevate it by making sure that they say a blessing, by making sure that they're eating and they know that this food is going to give them energy to learn Torah. There's a funny story that you said. It's funny you say that because there's different kind of personalities. There's different kind of Benoni, and we saw that last week. We saw the Benoni who reached the level of Benoni because he has no he has no passion. He's not someone who loves pleasures. So because he doesn't love pleasures, his personality fit perfectly with a Benoni, and he was able to reach that level. Or she, again, he or she. So it's different. There's different kind of Benoni, but the main point is that they have similar is that the Benoni, everything he or she does is to get closer to God. Anything physical, he's able to, or she's able to elevate it and make it godly. Okay? Can I tell you this story?
Go ahead.
So in the time of, in when people lived in Russia, when Chabad was just coming out, okay? This is one of the Hasidim of one of the rabbis. I'm not sure which one. Maybe the Alter rabbis or maybe another one. So they study the Tanya, they study the Chassidus, and they really reach the level of a Benoni. So there's a story that I remember I was told, and it was like, whoa, it really made an impact on me. Until today, I get confused. One of the Chassidim, he would, be out of the house a lot, either working, and then he would go and learn Torah, and he would also pray a lot. He was a real Benoni. And at night he would come home. I don't think him and his wife had children. I think they didn't have children, but his wife would wait for him and always prepare him food. When he would come home, he would just, eat the food and then I don't know, go to sleep or go. I'm not sure what exactly how his schedule was, but I just remember that he would come home and the food was usually prepared. His wife was not there, and he would just eat it. One day, and they were very poor. They were very poor. I'm not sure what he did. It was in Russia that there wasn't a lot of money. One day, his wife didn't have food. Oh, and she would always make sure to feed him because she knew that he was so busy the whole day, being occupied with whatever, that he wouldn't eat if she didn't prepare him food, And one day she didn't have any money and she didn't know what to do. She didn't prepare him any food. And she felt really bad. And he came home and she wasn't there. And he saw, like, in the sink, there was a bowl with, she left a bowl with, like a sponge kind of thing and some water. And the wife gets home and she's like, did you eat something? She knew she didn't prepare him anything. He's like, yeah. It was just a little bit hard to cut. Like, he was so disconnected from physical pleasures. He ate the sponge and the water. So when you ask, he was on one level that we can't understand, but he definitely, for him, eating real food or eating a sponge didn't make a difference for him. That's how disconnected he was. Obviously not a level that everybody can reach, but
no, that's not my.
It's just an interesting story. You made me think when you asked that question. But I'm sure, like, the way the Alter Rebbe described that there's different kind of Benoni. There's the one who really is attracted to, who has a very strong nature to pleasures and constantly has to be vigilant and protecting himself and fighting so as not to give in to his evil inclinations. And then there's the Benoni who doesn't. His evil inclination, it leaves him alone, lets him. So that person, not his nature doesn't care about physical pleasure, so he doesn't, so I think it's two different kind of personalities, but the main thing is the intention. Why are you doing this? Are you trying to elevate it? Are you trying to get closer to God? And a Benoni, whatever he does, whatever action he will do, which is obviously good action and holy actions, but even the ones that are mundane, like eating food, he will make sure to do it for God and to elevate it. Okay?
When you eat a piece of chocolate, it's not a...
And maybe he will control himself from too much chocolate. It's
Too much, okay, but...
It's part of it's part of that work of self-indulgence, of fulfilling your... Yeah.
There is a little further, but I think your answer would probably be the same. When you use the word pleasure, another thing comes in mind, which is the performance of husbandry and
sexual pleasures.
Duties. Yeah, and because I just cannot imagine that without
passion.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually not allowed to have a sexual pleasure. A relationship, a husband and wife cannot have it without passion. It's part of the mitzvah. People confuse passion with evil, but for a husband and wife to be passionate together is a mitzvah. There's nothing wrong with it. So it's an actual mitzvah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for a Benoni, of course, it's when obviously his intention is holier than someone who just does it out of whatever. But there's nothing wrong with
the sense of I'm trying to be quiet.
Okay, you know what? Chapter 16 is actually talking about this. It's very, very interesting. Okay, so we kind of reviewed, we learned a lot of things. We learned about the 3 types of people. And now the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain something more practical, something that can talk to all of us. What happens when you don't have passion? What happens when you don't have emotions? What happens when he talks about it? The Alter Rebbe talks about someone who's a Benoni, right? He's not able to rid himself of his evil. His whole life, he's going to have that evil nature, that natural instinct in him. He's not able to get rid of it. He's only able to maintain it with his thought, his speech, and action. He's able to conquer his little world, which is his body, his little city. And he's able to make sure that his thoughts, speech, and action are always godly and bringing him close to God. But the Torah says, and it's funny that you ask the question, it's very related. The Torah says that if you do a mitzvah, or if you learn Torah, and you don't have a feeling of awe and fear of God, you don't have that passion behind, your mitzvah has no wings and just stays. And if you do it out of habit, it even stays heavier. And if you do it because you don't want to do it, it's attached to negative, so it even goes heavier. It says that an interesting story. The Baal Shem Tov was once traveling, and one of his Chassidim said, "Let's go to the shul." And he said, "I can't enter the shul." He says, "Why?" He's like, "I can't enter the synagogue because it's full of Torah and mitzvot." And they tell him, "What? Like, what do you mean? That then you should enter?" He said, "No, it's full of Torah and mitzvot that did not fly, that weren't able to be elevated, that were done without any feeling, without any emotion, without any passion. And it's full and it takes too much place. I cannot enter." So this is where emotions come from. Now, it's very interesting because as we continue through the chapters, everything we learned before, we're going to kind of delve a little bit deeper and we're going to understand better. What did we learn about emotions? What did we learn about emotions? How are emotions created? How do emotions come? And why isn't a Benoni able to feel that emotion of love and fear of God?
Created in the mind.
Exactly. The emotions in chapter, in the beginning of the chapter, one of the chapter 3 or 4, we learned that in the mind, there's the Chachma, which is the father, the Bina, which is the mother. And when you meditate and when you think about something very deeply, especially here it talks about when you think about God very deeply, the Chachma and the Bina are like the parents, and they conceive, and that conception creates an emotion. But it's something that is very hard. And this chapter tells us that some people are not able to create emotions. There's two. Okay, so we're gonna read it inside, and then I'm gonna say, because I'm going ahead of myself. Okay, so I don't think you have the Tanya. I'm going to share my screen so you can read the Tanya with the English explanation. Let's just find it. Where is it? Here. Okay, so chapter 16 begins. This then is the important principle regarding the divine service of the Benoni. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe begins that this, what is he going to be talking about? We're going to see, is the most important and the essential work of a Benoni. Ha'ikar hu limshol v'lishlot al hateva shebechlal hasmali. The essential thing for Benoni is to govern and rule the nature that is in the left part of the heart. Al yedei or Hashem hamer lanefesh eloki shebamoach v'lishlot al halev. By means of the divine light that illuminates the divine soul abiding in the brain and to rule the desires of the heart. Okay? So in the previous chapter, we learned about a concept of moach shalit al halev. What does that mean? Moach shalit al halev is the mind rules the heart. The mind controls the heart. So what did we learn? We learned that how is a Benoni able to do his work? By controlling his impulses. In this chapter, the Alter Rebbe explains a little more. And he says it's not only able, it's not, moach shalit al lev doesn't only mean to control your heart, doesn't only mean for your mind to take control over your impulses, but it also can change your heart. And this is very powerful. This is where we learn what about a Benoni who doesn't feel love and doesn't have fear of God, right? He's not a tzaddik. It doesn't come inborn. For a tzaddik, he doesn't have to work hard. A tzaddik, a righteous person, that love and fear naturally comes, and he's passionate. His heart is so passionate, so fiery. The passion in his heart makes his movements and his daily actions and thoughts and speech so much easier to connect to God, because he has that passion. It's so strong. But he lives with that passion. A Benoni doesn't live with that passion. What does he have to do? So let's continue. So the Tanya tells us, sorry, I keep on going back and forth. The Tanya tells us, "Keshemizbainen bemocho bigdulas ein sav barchu lehailin me binasai ruach das veyiras Hashem b'machar." When he meditates in his mind on the greatness of the blessed infinite God, so as to create through his understanding a spirit of knowledge and fear of God in his mind, liasur mirad deraisa uderabanan vafilu iser kal shel divrehem chas v'sham. This will cause him to turn away from the evil condemned by the Torah or by our sages, even from a minor rabbinic prohibition, heaven forbid. And this contemplation, him thinking about it, will also bring a love of God in the right part of his heart. With a longing and desire to cleave to him by fulfilling the precepts of the Torah and of the rabbis and the study of Torah, which is equivalent to them all, okay? So I'm going to explain a little more. So by him meditating, what is the Alter Rebbe teaches us? Yes, okay, he controls his emotion, right? We learned in the previous chapter that there's a Benoni, that his nature doesn't bother him and doesn't make him go after any pleasures. So it's very easy for him to study Torah. It's very easy for him to do mitzvahs, because that's his nature. But the Tanya says he's called someone who doesn't serve God, because if he does it out of his nature, then it's not really someone who serves God, and he has to create his emotion. So how does he create that emotion, that real passion and love for God, and love and awe of God? Is by it's not enough just to do. It's not enough just to do things that come naturally to you. But you actually have to think about it and meditate and learn about it and really ponder to the point where you're able to create a love and an emotion that you can actually feel the love of God. And this is what will put wings to any action, to any thought, to any speech that you do. So doing Torah mitzvah is just because you were told so, or just out of nature, or just out of habit, is not enough. Doesn't make that action. It keeps it physical. Like when someone lights, a candle, a physical candle, or when someone puts on tefillin, or when someone gives charity. If they just do it out of habit, if they just do it because that's what they were used to, they do it without a passion, without a love, that mitzvah stays physical. It does not go to any higher realms. By adding the intention, by adding the passion behind, by creating that love and really thinking and meditating, this is where you can create wings to that mitzvah, and it goes high. Now, it sounds really unattainable. Can you imagine every action? Can you imagine how you have to be so intentional? You can't just act, we all just act. Who thinks about before everything we do? Who really thinks about, But
very intense.
It's very intense, yeah. and even more so, it says that it says that a Benoni, not always, even if he meditates and ponders, he's not always able to attain or to create an emotion, because there's two kind of souls. Okay, that the Tanya brings this, which I think is mind blowing. There's two kind of souls. There's a kind of soul that is part of that comes from a world, okay, spiritual world, where they were birthed, and they're able to then birth emotions, okay? And there's a soul that is still pregnant. That means it's not able to give birth, but it's there. The potential is there. It's pregnant. It's ibur. Ibur means to be pregnant, okay? So let me tell you how to create an emotion. There are 3 stages to creating an emotion, to develop a healthy emotion, okay? Because most of the time, the emotions we feel are fake, are created by outwardly. Like, it's funny because when I was before the class, I was just looking up that concept in the world, about emotions, what the world thinks about emotions, where do they come from, and I fell on this website where it tells writers and producers and how to create an emotion in people, so all those things are fake emotions. There's people out there in marketing, there's people out there in writers for their novels, where they work really hard to give you that feeling that you're really feeling an emotion, but all those emotions are fake. The Tanya teaches us what are 3 stages to develop a real, healthy, authentic emotion. To feel that is very hard. Most people don't feel real, authentic emotions, okay? Versus instinctive emotions, instinctive ones that just come because of whatever, outwardly, So the first thing is contemplation and meditation, okay? Which is the mother and the father, the chachma and the bina, that come together in the brain and really contemplate and meditate over, okay, we're going to talk about God, okay, because we're talking about the holier emotions, okay? But all this can be taken and applied in your regular world, relationships between man and women, relationship with kids, So by contemplating and meditating, by taking your chachma, which is the 2 different kinds, the words, the knowledge and the what was the chachma? What was the word? The wisdom and the knowledge, exactly. And really thinking and meditating together. Then you get ibur, okay? You get pregnancy, which is not revealed yet. And then eventually you can give birth, okay? And that's when the intellect gives birth to an emotion, which is an emotion of chesed or gvura, an emotion of kindness, or gvura, which is severity, which represents chesed is the son, and gvura is the daughter. So really what happens in this physical world happens in an emotional world, and of course in a spiritual world, in different levels, okay? So creating an emotion, which is a big deal, because our world today, most of us live with emotions. Mm-hmm. The question is, when is it real? When is it healthy? When is it instinctive? How can you tell the difference? So if it went through these 3 stages, it's a really healthy emotion. How many of us really experience a really healthy, strong, deep emotion? Very rare. I don't know. I'm talking for myself. But the Tanya tells us, okay, and I'm not going to read on, I'm going to say this orally, because what time is it? I'm going to say this orally. The Tanya tells us that no, a Benoni is not always, maybe there's some that are able to, but not all of them, or not most people don't come from the world of birthing where they're able to give birth of an emotion. So then he teaches us about something else. There's a different kind of emotion. It's called intellectual emotion. It means that you thought about it, you contemplated. The Benoni thought, contemplated, and meditated. He had his chachma and bina really thinking and coming together. They conceived, but it stayed in the intellect. The emotion stayed in the intellect. It did not come down to the heart. It wasn't able to give birth. This emotion, according to the Tanya, is called tivuna. It's an emotion that can achieve the same result as someone who feels that fiery and passionate love in his heart for God. He won't feel it like the person, but he can achieve the same level. So the Alter Rebbe tells you, don't worry. If you can't create that emotion, if you're not able to feel the passion, you can still meditate. You can still think about God and think about his greatness and keep it in your mind. And with that, God will take that action that you did and will add the passion to it so it can fly up.
Okay.
So the Benoni, how do we know that emotion is real? What makes it real? What makes it real? Because when he thinks and meditates about God, okay, he doesn't feel it, right? He's not able to bring it down into his heart. So he's not able to feel it. But he has it in his mind enough that it leads him to an action, that it leads him to constantly do things for God, even if he is not able to feel it physically in his heart. And that's what proves that it's a real emotion. It's different. It's not as intense. It's not as maybe, I don't know what the right word is. I wouldn't say as real because it's as real. Anything that brings you to action, that means it's a real emotion. Mm-hmm. It's just not as passionate. It's not as spiritual as the emotion that comes from the brain. Mm-hmm. And that is something very, very, very important to know. Because many people will do things only if they feel. I don't feel it, or I feel it, or, and sometimes this can lead to something not good. For example, if a parent has no feelings, okay, and it could happen, has no feeling for their kids, what are they supposed to do? I don't have feelings, so then I shouldn't take care of them? That's where you have to be able to, of course, it's tragic. We hope that every parent, but it's natural. It's part of nature that sometimes, yes, I mean, you see, sometimes parents don't have emotions for their kids and or sometimes you're not in the mood. You're not motivated. It doesn't have to be that tragic. Sometimes I'm just not in the mood of making supper, but when you sit and you think, and that's where it becomes more powerful. Like sometimes you'll do it naturally and then sometimes you really have to think, okay, I need to feed my kids. I want the routine to go smoothly, and your intention, you're able to create an intention that's far greater than if it comes just naturally to you. And that's the strength of the Benoni, because a tzaddik, does he have work when he serves God, when his hands and his work and his mouth come out, his heart is full of passion. He doesn't have to work hard. He's not choosing. There's no choice there. A tzaddik, it's clear to him that God exists. It's clear to him that that he's loved and that he loves. He doesn't have to work hard. But a Benoni who doesn't feel that love, a Benoni who doesn't feel that awe, that respect, who has to work, who just feels his evil inclination pulling him towards things. Can you imagine how far greater his choice is when he contemplates and thinks about God? And because of that, it leads him to an action of doing Torah and mitzvahs, of serving a God that he doesn't know, that he doesn't see. How far greater that is. So yes, it is attainable. It's a hard work. But it brings out a beauty that, that we always aim for. Oh my God, we want to do things just if I feel it. If I feel good about it, if I feel it fiery, I'll do it. But no, sometimes you have to learn how to create an emotion. If you can't bring it down to the heart, so how to create it in your mind, and from the mind be able to do an action. And even that, God will bring that emotion and that action, will bring that action and to add the wings. It says that ahava and yira. are the two emotions that are wings to the mitzvah or to the Torah learning, and they elevate it. They bring it to a
Ahava is love.
Ahava is yira. You know what? Really, according to the Torah, according to the Tanya, the two emotions, really, the real emotions are Ahava and yira. Everything else, Ahava is love, yira is awe or fear. Okay, so those are there's only two emotions, which is chesed and gvura. Everything else comes out of love and fear. All the other emotions that exist come out either from fear or from love. And it's funny because I think last week I was listening to a talk show and it was talking about motivation and how to be motivated, and it said that really the only two emotions that exist are love and fear. And I'm thinking, like, where did he get that from? I just thought it was interesting because that's what the Tanya says, that the real two emotion that exist is love and fear. And in order for us to serve God, it's not enough just to do it out of habit, and you need to have that love and fear. And then the Torah tells you, but you can't especially create that love and fear of God. I can't love God. I don't know what to love. I don't know who to love. But the Torah, the Tanya gives us tools that by contemplating and by thinking about it and by really dwelling, you can create an emotion, an intellectual emotion, an emotion that you understand why some people can be passionate about God and why it makes sense to be passionate about God. And because you have that emotion in your understanding in your emotion, or your emotion in your understanding?
Understanding in the emotion.
Understanding in the emotion, you're able to reach a level that a tzaddik reaches through the real emotion that he feels in his heart.
When you talk about fear, it's in the sense of awe, not in the sense of being scared.
Right. So a lot of people confuse fear with like, I'm afraid, like anxiety or fear of heights, or no. It's an awe. It's like, you know, like you're not embarrassed, but I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's like
it's more like admiration.
Admiration
and surprised admiration.
Yeah.
So when they're talking about fear, because there's a lot of that in this chapter, fear and love of God. So fear is not the sense that if you don't do something, he's going to...
No. Fear is that you're so afraid, or you have so much awe for God, you're afraid of disconnecting to him.
Okay, disconnecting from
him, that you just want to connect. So it's a different way. There's the one where you want to connect because you love him, and there's one you're afraid of disconnecting, like it's opposite. The whole concept of fear, of chesed and gvura, chesed is outwardly, goes towards someone. Gvura is severity, is restricting. So love is outwardly towards God, fear pushes you back. But both of them connect you to God. The love and the fear, while doing opposite, opposite actions or emotions or whatever you want to call it, they both connect you to God. And these emotions are essential to fulfilling Torah and mitzvot and to having a relationship with God. Should we continue inside? Okay, let's continue inside. Okay. Furthermore, one must know an additional important principle in the Benoni's service of God. Okay, this is what we explain. Even if one's intellect and understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart. Okay? So even if he's not able to produce that real love, that feeling, that passion in his heart, and that fear of God, to make it burn as it awe with fiery flames, with a desire and a longing and a passion manifestly felt in the heart to cleave to God. So by this description of the feeling, you can understand that tzaddikim really have, passion in their heart. Like it's something they experience that we don't experience. So they do experience pleasures. Their pleasures are just not physical pleasures, they're spiritual pleasures. Rak ahava misutares b'mocho v'talumos libo. Instead, the love is hidden in his mind and in the recesses of his heart. Dayinu shalev mevin beruach chachma uvina shebemacho. This means that the heart comprehends with the spirit of wisdom and understanding in the brain. Okay? Instead of being excited with the love of God as it ought to be, the heart merely experiences an understanding of Gedulas Ensav Baruch Hu Dechula Kame Kla Chashiv Mamish, the greatness of the blessed infinite God before whom all else is at naught. And so it's important to understand that, like, don't try to reach something you can't reach. Don't try and say, I'm not going to do anything until I feel passionate and fiery. You're not able to do it. Don't try to reach it. It's a very important message that the Tanya keeps on telling us. It keeps on telling us, don't try to reach levels you cannot reach. There are certain things you cannot do. You can't change in nature. This is how God created the world. This is how God created the human. This is how God created the human psyche. Don't try to get to places you can't reach. But there are things you could do. And that you should work for. And that you should know that is as great as if you would have felt it. And that's what he's telling the Benoni. He's saying, the Benoni, you want to connect to God, right? You want to be constantly connected to God. But you're not able to create that emotion. That's okay. You create it in your mind, and by understanding in your mind, by having that emotion, by creating that emotion in your mind, you're still able to reach the level that a tzaddik is able to reach in your own level. Of course, for a tzaddik, it's not good enough, but you're still able to reach a very high level of fulfilling Torah and mitzvot with an emotion with that goes up to heaven. Asher al kain yasa la yizbach shetichla elav nefesh kol chai lidavek ulehikalal be'aret. For which reason it is fitting and due unto him, blessed be he, that the soul of every living thing should pine for him to cleave to and become absorbed in his divine light. V'gam nafsha v'ruchai asher bekir b'kach yasa lahem liyes kalos elav b'chashika v'chafitza lases minartika. It is likewise fitting for his own soul, the nefesh and ruach within him, to languish for him with a fervent desire to leave the body in order to cleave to him. So he's able, through his brain, he's able to understand an emotion that people feel where they, I guess people, when I say people, tzaddikim feel where their soul wants to leave their body and just join God. He's able to experience that through his brain. Okay, all this we can apply again to our daily life. Sometimes we won't have feelings, we won't have passion about different kinds. We are able to understand and reach certain emotions through our brains, which is very powerful. So intensely his thoughts continue should his nefesh and ruach long for God, that only against their will do they dwell in the body. They are bound to it like deserted wives. So something interesting that when I was preparing the class, the Tanya brings the concept of aguna, right? That it just really explains, the Alter Rebbe really explains the feeling through a intellectual experience. Instead of experiencing it emotionally, you experience it intellectually. And he even writes the details of even someone who's like a deserted wife, which is talking about the concept of aguna, which is a woman who is not, whose husband left her, but she didn't get divorced, and she
Cannot
doesn't
remarry.
know where he is, so she's stuck in a marriage that is
Suspended, essentially.
that's kind of dead, but she can't remarry. So why does he bring that way? I just want to remember my thought, why I thought it was interesting that why? Because a body, a soul in a body is kind of like a guna, especially in Galus, especially in this time where we don't see God. What does that mean? Originally, when the Matan Torah happened, when God gave us the Torah, that was the marriage of God and the people. Okay, the people actually in Matan Torah were able to kind of see God, and they felt that love, all of them, and that's why they like it said on the spot, like their soul left. It was like the marriage of the Jewish people to God. What happens? God disappears. He left the Jewish people like an aguna, which is what? Which is we're married to God. We have something that's missing because he's gone, he's not there. So we try to fill up that void with other things and try to marry, so to say, other stuff, to be devoted to other stuff, but it doesn't work because we're still married to God. And Aguna, no matter what she does, it will never, it cannot remarry. Even if she tries to remarry, it says that her kids will be mamzer, which is like real bastard, but in the Torah word is like, basically it's not good. The kids, it creates only problems. A woman who remarries without getting her get only creates problems and cannot find peace until she is properly divorced. So the Tanya over here brings the Jewish people sorry, I'm going to drink some water.
You're passionate about what you're doing.
Definitely. Okay. Oh my God. You know when you get an ear in the wrong
Pipe.
I don't know if it's air or something else,
You
but
got probably some fluid in your air pipe.
maybe. So what was I saying? The Jewish people are like an aguna, where we're married to God, but he's gone. So we have the void, but we can't do anything else. And constantly they're looking for other things to dedicate their life, and it's just not working. Why is that compared to it? I thought that was interesting that he mentioned that. And he brought that's the feeling that you're supposed to have about God, but you don't really feel. But you could understand that feeling through your brain and feel that lack of connection. And to add, it's a little bit off topic, but one of the reasons why, can you imagine the Jewish people who just received the Torah 40 days later, 40 days later, they served an idol.
Yeah,
They created a calf. How does that make sense?
Because
Well, Rabbi explained it, how it made sense.
How? What did the rabbi say?
It was engineered by Moses' brother. What was his name?
Aaron?
Was it Aaron? And he didn't want a revolt amongst the people, so he gave them the golden calf as a project to keep them distracted, so that they wouldn't fret over the fact that Moses was gone a second time and not coming back. So it was almost like, do this while we're waiting.
Okay.
You know?
So that's one of the answers. But if you want to understand it through the eyes of the Tanya,
Okay.
So interesting. It said that when the Jews received the Torah, it created a passionate love and close relationship with God. They experienced intimacy with God in an emotional, spiritual way. And suddenly, 40 days later, Moses wasn't there, God wasn't there. They felt the void so strong that they needed to replace it with something, and that's where they created the calf. So that emotion, they really experienced God in a passionate, emotional way that when Moses was gone, they didn't see God, they didn't feel God. The void was so strong that they had to replace it with something, and that's where they fought to build the calf, and that's where Aaron had to kind of meditate, so there's no revolt. Someone who doesn't have that passion will not feel the void when it's not there. So for a Benoni, he doesn't have that passion. He never had it. He doesn't feel the void. But he needs to still be able to create that emotion through his intellect. And we still need to be able to create that emotion through our intellect to be able to connect to God and to be able to do our actions, our Torah and mitzvot, give it wings to our Torah and mitzvot. And wait, I wanted to say something else that was interesting. And what is interesting, how do you know? And someone could say, yeah, but it's not a real emotion. Why do I want to experience an emotion intellectually? It's not real. So the Tanya tells you won't be able to give birth to an emotion. It's only certain souls that are able to birth emotions, at least spiritual emotions. After physical emotion is a different thing, things that are more physical. But not every soul is able to create spiritual and godly emotions. So for those souls that are not able to create, don't try. Create it through your brain, and that if it leads to an action, if it leads you to doing good actions in Torah and mitzvot, that means it's real, because something real leads to an action. If it wasn't real, it wouldn't lead to an action. So that's where it's really powerful. If you're searching, well, I want to be genuine, I want to be truthful, but you are genuine because you really thought about it, and that thought, that emotion in your intellect was able to lead you to an action.
Okay, what about actions that are very negative?
Actions that are very negative, like, for example?
Killing people.
Okay, those. So what are you saying? What's the question?
Well, the emotion that brought these people to this kind of action.
These are very negative emotions.
But are they real?
Are they real? That's a good question. Okay, so now, the Tanya actually goes on. We have a few minutes left, but the Tanya says that there's a pasuk in the Tanya, I'm going to read it. She asked a very good question. She said, what about action that are negative, that were obviously had started in the thought, a negative thought? Okay, what about those? So it says, there's a pasuk that says, Machshava tova Hashem mitzarfe lemaseh. A good thought, Hashem connects it, joins it with a deed. And then somewhere else it continues, but a bad thought, God does not count as a good deed. If someone has a bad thought and they didn't do anything about it, God won't count it as a deed. But if you had a good intention, if you had a good thought, God will count it and join it to a deed. What does that mean? Naturally, the human being, and here we're talking about in the Tanya about the Jewish people, but the human being is good. Okay? They're godly, they're created from God. They're I don't know if I could say their nature, but they're good. So whenever they have a good thought, it's supposed to lead to a good action. A good thought is supposed to lead to good action. If they were stopped, it's because of nature, it's because of whatever that stopped them. But they were naturally, a good thought is supposed to lead to a good action.
So the way to recognize if a thought, an emotion is real, is that it brings to a good action.
That's okay. Very good. Very interesting that you say that. Right. But a bad thought, why does God not consider it as an action? Because a bad thought, God knows, is not real. A bad thought only came through the bad spirit, came through the natural instincts with what's natural, what's evil. It's the cover-up of God. It's the fact that we don't see God. So it's not real. Anything that's bad thoughts are not real. Unfortunately, sometimes they lead to really bad actions. But there's another explanation somewhere else, which says anyone who does an avera or does something bad, a bad action, it's because they were taken over by what does it say? A spirit of folly. They're still responsible for doing that bad action, because you have to know how to keep away from that spirit of folly and always having control over your evil inclination so as not to get overtaken. But a bad thought is not counted as a deed, because a bad thought is not real. It comes from somewhere exterior. The real, something that's real is good.
Okay.
Okay.
So what makes an emotion good is the fact
that it leads to real.
Is that it comes from God.
What makes an emotion? How do you know if an emotion is real? If you're really feeling something, if it leads to a good action.
But before it leads to a good action, it comes from our brain.
Yeah. So then, in order first of all, you can have emotions that come from you don't know where. Okay, those are emotions. We have emotions all the time. But when you want to know a real healthy emotion that came, and how does it come? Through the 3 stages of really thinking and contemplating about something, and then eventually creating an emotion, or either in the brain or in the heart, is if it leads you to good action.
Okay.
Any other emotions are just manipulation of, what your eyes see, what your ears hear, and people tell you, it's not that surprising that we're constantly being manipulated. And the one of the proof is, and I'm going to finish with this, is that certain things were accepted before that are not accepted today, and certain emotions are created in the past were different, that today people will react differently. You know what I mean? Like, just something quickly. I remember seeing a picture of a woman getting a ticket at the beach for wearing a bathing suit that was like a little too short, and she's being ticketed. So that was looked as really bad then. That was the emotion. Oh my God, how dare she go on the beach with, whatever she was wearing. Today, it's like there's no, like those emotions keep on changing. So if there's emotions that keep on changing according to what society decided is right and wrong, those are not real emotions. An emotion that's real stays true no matter what. Yeah. So when you create an emotion, a healthy emotion, through contemplation, meditation, and eventually, and it leads to good action, this is how you know it's healthy and it's good and it's right and it's holy. And it connects the action to go up to a higher place. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the class. We're gonna next week we're gonna review and add a little bit more to what we said this week. All right.
Thank you so much, Sterna.
With pleasure. Take care.